Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets ran, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land under the frame, and the home of the brave?
Don't be afraid, this is a low fat, and you are listening to HonestAnswerRadio.com. Now, where is the egg roll you guys promised me?
The views and opinions expressed on the Honest Answer Radio show are the opinions of Honest Answer Media and no one else. If you're hearing a syndicated broadcast of this show, don't hold it against the broadcaster. Rather, congratulate them on their openness, tolerance, and respect for the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you very much.
I thank God for my life, and for the stars and stripes. May freedom forever fly. Let it ring. Salute the ones who died, the ones that give their lives so we don't have to sacrifice all the things we love. A little chicken fried and cold beer on a Friday night, a pair of jeans that fit just right, and the radio up. I like to see sunrise, see love in my woman's eyes, feel the touch of my precious child, and know a mother's love.
If you think freedom is free, you better think again. So get on the bus, ladies. Lock and load.
Yeah, welcome one more time to Honest Answer Radio here on HonestAnswerRadio.com, where we're kicking the mainstream media in the teeth every chance we get. If this is your first time listening to us, I'm going to be the Marty half of your dynamic host and duo on this fine Thursday evening.
And on the Thursday evening edition of Honest Answer Radio, I will be the Casey half.
And hopefully my voice is going to hold together long enough for us to get through this thing.
Well, you're sounding better than you did Tuesday.
Yeah, I feel better than
You're still
I did
ugly.
Tuesday. Well, you know. I ain't. That's genetics. Ain't nothing I can do about that. Well, let's see. Oddly enough, between Tuesday and today,
which was just a Wednesday, man.
Yeah.
There's only like one day.
Well, this may be hard for people to believe, but the things going on there at the VA have not been fixed yet. I know what you guys are thinking, that surely it would have been fixed by now, but no, it hadn't been fixed yet.
If you really, if anybody out there is interested in my opinion, I will say that as soon as Obama opened his mouth yesterday to speak on it, for me, it just made it worse.
Well, he's going to have to. He had to speak on it. I mean, if he hadn't have spoke on it, here we would be tonight.
But did you hear
criticizing him for not speaking?
In all his speech? Did you hear him say, "I'm going to fire people"?
Well, now I've got some audio tonight where he says people are going to be punished.
That he says punished. He's going to take their $9,000 bonus away from them.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, what they're going? He's going to cut their vacation days back by 2 days.
I think the Obama administration have shown that their idea of punishing wrongdoers, particularly people who have been appointed or hired since he's been in office, at least anyway, what that means is they're going to be close to retiring, and he is going to force them to retire early.
That's full pay and benefits.
Oh, of course. I mean, there's not going to be any real punishment dealt out.
I'm sorry. Somebody needs to go to jail.
Yeah, there needs to be prison involved here. But I wish I had more faith and confidence in that process. And I don't think I'm alone. I think there are a lot more Americans, particularly veterans, that when we hear all of these speeches and, we're going to get to the bottom of this and people are going to be punished talk, it just rolls right over us because we have long ago lost faith in our government to fight for us as hard as we fought for them. I was watching Fox and Friends, and there's a clip. I wish I had it tonight, but you can go over there to the Blaze. I think the Blaze still has it. Mark Luttrell, the Navy SEAL, they did a movie about him, the Lone Survivor movie. They asked him how he would fix it. And I really like his idea about fixing the VA. First, everybody in the House and the Senate, they need to have their health care moved to the VA.
Mm-hmm.
They should make the VA responsible for every elected representative's health care.
And their families.
And their families. That's right. If they had to endure the same treatment and had to get that same quality care, it would be fixed by tomorrow morning. Because they wouldn't tolerate it. They wouldn't put up with it. But see, it's not them. Another idea he floated out there that I think it's fantastic. They need to do away with the VA, period, and give every veteran should get a special ID card or something that they take it wherever they want. Whatever doctor they want to go to, sort of like a voucher.
Yeah.
And say,
is it?
Let them get their health care in the private sector.
I have always wondered this, man. Why, if you've served your country, how come you don't get to pick your doctors? How come after you served and you served honorably, you've come home, why do you have to go to the VA instead of being able to pick your doctor and pick the hospital you want to go to? I mean, why?
The only reason I can think is that it's to create more of a government bureaucracy. It's to create more government jobs. It's the only thing I can figure, because it's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, you would think that people that have gone out and had their limbs blown off and that have witnessed the atrocities of war, one would think that they should be able to go anywhere they want to get worked on, and the best in the business. Now, people that work for the VA or people that represent the VA, well, they'll tell you, we have got the highest quality health care in the United States right here at the VA. That's a lie. It's not an exaggeration. It's not overestimating themselves. It's a lie, pure and simple. But I think Luttrell's onto something with that. I'm not saying that the VA should be, done away with in its entirety. But the health care part of it, as far as the VA hospitals, close them. Just close them.
Sure. I'm on board with that.
There doesn't need to be any of that. The Veterans Administration should be just that, administrative, period. They should handle veterans' paperwork and things of that nature. But a veteran's health care, keep your hands off of us. You guys have done enough damage. All of the shrinks and everything at the VA, useless, completely useless.
Tony, you want to talk about some of the shrinks at the VA? We've got a listener out there, Richard. Mm-hmm. Ask Richard sometime about what kind of experience he's had with the psychiatrist and the head shrinks at the VA system that he has to go to.
If a veteran needs a psychiatrist, if they need psychiatric help, psychological help, I think they would be better served out in the private sector.
Yeah, going and picking their own psychiatrist.
Yeah, and let them be comfortable with who they go see.
Look, there are tons of psychiatrists out there. Marty, I think you even saw one time years ago that had served. The fellow had been in Vietnam. Yeah. He knew how to talk to veterans.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of people in that line of work that they truly understood veterans, and they work with veterans, but they work with veterans from the private sector.
From the private sector, yeah.
In the VA.
And didn't you like that guy? I mean, you saw some people you didn't like. I know that.
It's the only guy in that field that I even remotely respect, even just a itty-bitty, teeny-tiny bit. But don't get me started on that profession. I've got some audio relating to this VA thing tonight. I got 2 clips from MSNBC, but with the same person. He was doing 2 separate shows on MSNBC. Retired Colonel Jack Jacobs. One clip, he's with Ronan Farrow, and on the other clip, he's on Joy Reid's show. Both clips, these people are trying to get him to say that, this is about money. This is about money. I've seen Rachel Maddow last night.
Yeah, I saw that.
Her long diatribe was all about money.
And how the Republicans won't give them any. That's why this is messed up.
That stingy old Republican budget. This VA problem, it's because George Bush sent our soldiers off to fight a war that they weren't prepared to fight, which, if you're a veteran, you should find that very insulting.
Also, do you know, and you probably do, but the VA was the only part of the defense budget that actually got an increase this time?
Yeah. See that, and that's the whole point of these 2 clips. And Colonel Jacobs sets the record straight. He will not be sucked into that. But Rachel Maddow was trying to say that George Bush was at fault because he sent them off to fight a war that they weren't prepared to fight, and the Obama administration is at fault because they weren't prepared for the soldiers returning home. Now, I will say that second part there, and not just on the Obama administration, but the Bush administration as well, neither administration was prepared for the returning veterans. But it didn't have anything to do with money. Money's not going to fix the VA.
But that is the Democrats' biggest thing. They always want more money. They want to pour more money into education. Look what has happened. We're spending more on education than we've ever spent in the history of education. And yet our educational system is in decline compared to other countries around the world. So it's not money.
Contrary to popular belief amongst the Democrats, money does not solve all problems. Now, money can fix a lot of things, but the VA is not one of them. Education isn't necessarily one of them either, but we're not talking about education. The Veterans Administration could have a blank check and say, you guys just fill in the numbers as you need it, and it's covered. And it still would not have stopped this bureaucratic nightmare that has gone on.
See, you got the right word there. Bureaucratic.
Yeah.
See, what has been happening when you feed the VA more money instead of that money going into, say, bringing in better cancer treatments for the veterans, or hiring more doctors, or, hiring nurses, it goes into creating more and more layers of bureaucracy.
Yeah. Did you remember not too long ago there was that big scandal there at Walter Reed? Remember that?
Mm-hmm. About the rats
Yeah.
and cockroaches everywhere? Yeah.
They wanted to blame lack of funding for the situation there at Walter Reed. Walter Reed, the money was not the problem at Walter Reed either. It was a bureaucratic snafu, just like everything else. See, a lot of the problems that we have with our government today is the bureaucracy. Democrats love that. The Democrats think that, a bigger and better bureaucracy is, 50% of the solution to everything. We just have to get more people in here. We need more people and more money.
And more layers of paper. Because
Right.
see, every
You've gotta
time
have
they
a paper
bring
trail.
in another person, you'll create another form to fill out. You create another person that has to sign off or tick this box or tick that box. So, where there was one time when, an injured soldier could come into the hospital, go see the receptionist, get called back to go see the doctor. Now, that veteran walks in, they hand him a stack of papers to fill out. He fills those out. They tell him to go back home. We're going to mail you some more paperwork for you to fill out. And then,
You would not believe, folks, if you have not seen the amount of paperwork that a veteran has to fill out just to claim his veteran benefits, it is a nightmare. You couldn't do it in a day. I just don't think one person could complete all of that paperwork in a day by themselves. It is ridiculous, and it's more of a burden than is necessary. But anyway, I've also got, Casey said a while ago, we mentioned the president speaking yesterday. I got a little clip of the president speaking. I've also got another clip from a Democrat from Georgia, David Scott. Now, he had some pretty row things to say about this. He gets a little hot about it, and I got to say I agree with him. I've got another clip of audio tonight that's not VA related. There was the president had another judicial nominee up for confirmation, or I don't know if not necessarily for confirmation, but to get the ball rolling anyway. And the guy's name is Barone, and the position literally will put this guy one step away from the Supreme Court. And he is the very person that authored the memo that gave the president the okay to drone strike American citizens without a trial.
in other words, without any kind of due process, the president decides you ought to die, then
Gotta go.
Then just watch out for the predator drones.
Yep. Rand Paul stood for a little over half an hour and spoke out against this, but it didn't do him any good. Guy still went through because, as you know, the Republicans in the Senate are now hamstrung thanks to Harry Reid. There's no way, they have no way to block any nomination.
Any judicial nomination
that comes from President Obama.
Unless it's a Supreme Court nomination,
Right.
They can still filibuster that. But Grant, it's a shame that you couldn't have all of Rand Paul's speech. I mean, it was over half an hour.
Yeah.
But it was all of it. I listened to all of it. And
You can find it. It's on the internet. It's on YouTube. The Blaze has got it.
But you got some of the good bits.
I got a couple of minutes of it. I've actually got the whole thing, but we don't have time to listen to it. And I got one more piece of audio tonight that I'm going to play before we get off the air. And it is from a professor who was instrumental in in authoring the Common Core standards. And he's got an audience there, and he's letting everybody know, first of all, that he wasn't paid to be there. And he starts telling why, he was helping to draft these Common Core standards. And come to find out, he wanted to get involved with Common Core because he's a white guy, and he's had a lot of privilege over the years that he just didn't deserve. And you can even hear in the audience, when I play this clip, you will hear an audible gasp from the audience, and there's even a couple of boos shouted out there. It's people
We'll
wouldn't
just
believe it without hearing it.
y'all are just gonna have to hear it
It
because
is
you
some of the
wouldn't.
most ridiculous speech I've ever heard in my life. But it figures because, now Common Core makes a lot of sense. Knowing that this guy helped author it, oh, yeah, okay, I got it.
Now you'll understand.
Now I understand. Well, all right, let's get some of this audio going here. First, let's hear from the president. Let's hear from the president on this because, he is the Mac Daddy, and he says he just ain't going to tolerate this stuff no more. So here we go.
So these men and women and their families are the best that our country has to offer. They've done their duty, and they ask nothing more than that this country does ours, that we uphold our sacred trust to all who have served. So when I hear allegations of misconduct, any misconduct, whether it's allegations of VA staff covering up long wait times or cooking the books, I will not stand for it. Not as Commander-in-Chief, but also not as an American. None of us should. So, if these allegations prove to be true, it is dishonorable, it is disgraceful, and I will not tolerate it, period. So today I want every veteran to know we are going to fix whatever is wrong, and so long as I have the privilege of serving as Commander-in-Chief, I'm going to keep on fighting to deliver the care and the benefits and the opportunities that your families deserve.
Oh, boy. I feel so much better now, just knowing that he says, one, he's not going to tolerate it, two, that somebody's going to be punished, and that he's on the job.
And that he got so specific about exactly what he was going to do to fix the problem. Wait, maybe he didn't.
I missed that part. I missed that part.
Maybe
of
he
his
didn't
speech.
say anything specific.
No.
Have you ever noticed that not once does he ever say anything
No,
specific about anything?
As a matter of fact, I remember in the lead up to his first election, that was one of my biggest complaints to everybody that was telling me they were going to vote for him. I kept saying over and over again, the man has not set forth one specific thing he's going to do to help fix this country. Not one. And everybody would say, well, you go over to his website. Go to his website. Look at his platform. I did. I did go look at his platform. There's nothing there. Throughout his first term, same thing. The man had never once said anything specific he was going to do, with the exception of the Affordable Care Act.
And he did say he was going to fundamentally transform the United States.
Even then, he didn't tell us how, because
No.
if he had told us how he was
If he
going to do
had
it,
said he was going to drive us to the brink of bankruptcy, we would have
right.
known something.
if he had been specific about his plans ever leading up to the election, he would not have made it into the White House. And if he was specific about what he was going to do about anything during the second term, he would have probably already been impeached.
He's always going to make sure.
Mm-hmm. And he wants us to never,
Let him be clear.
yeah, he wants to be clear about things, and he doesn't want us to misunderstand. I haven't misunderstood anything, Mr. President. I know you a crook and a schnook and have seen it all along. So, but you're right. This speech here, he doesn't lay out anything specific, and it's because he doesn't know what he's going to do. He never knows.
I think he's probably going to have to read it in the newspaper.
Well, I don't have a whole lot of faith in any of this being resolved, to be honest with you. I think any of our veterans that are listening to us right now, I think they feel the same way. One of my fellow veterans out there, Richard, I think it'd be safe to say he agrees with me. We don't have a lot of hope in our Veterans Administration.
I've heard all this crap before.
Yeah, it's just really unfortunate. There's horror stories about people dying while in the care of the VA. You know, my whole life I've heard them, and it's been sort of a running joke. You know, you getting at the end of life or something like that, and you're a veteran. Oh, please don't send me to the VA, please. Well, see, now this stuff is starting to hit home, and this specific case here where you've got secret waiting lists and everything, I wish I could say that was something new, that it was a shock to anybody else that wasn't a veteran, but it wasn't. I think I've heard a lot of veterans say, you know, they're glad that this is, you know, that it's making the news and that, you know, finally
but it's something they all knew.
Yeah, exactly.
Ask Richard how long he's been waiting. You know, talk to our Uncle Kenneth. He can tell you some things about people having to wait. I mean,
you know, there was a bill being put forth today, a VA Accountability Act. You know, wasn't going to cost any money. I see Richard's put it in the chat. Wasn't going to cost any money. The Democrats tried to block it.
Because it's going to make somebody accountable.
Now, if they really want to get to the bottom of this thing, and they really do want to hold people accountable, and really, really do, you know, want to do something positive for the veterans, why would they block this bill? And they say that and you know, all the while accusing the Republicans of grandstanding.
See,
Chris Hayes over at MSNBC said that the Republicans are just using, that they are trying to make the VA scandal into Benghazi. In other words, in the eyes of Chris Hayes,
it ain't even a real scandal.
It's not even a real scandal. This is a non-issue. This is just something Republicans are trying to use to discredit the Democrats. We don't have to use this to discredit the Democrats.
They're doing it themselves, man. They do it without us helping.
Yeah.
I mean, see, you and I, you know, I know people think that we just bring this stuff out and everything, but shoot, man, they make our job easy.
All I have to do is hit record, really and truly. That's all we really got to do is we record their own words and we play them to where we can't be accused of quoting them out of context. The Democrats have made our job very, very easy. And speaking of MSNBC, you know, I brought up Chris Hayes. Let's get to that audio because this is pretty. Whew. This had my blood boiling. Seeing this happen on two different shows on the same network and seeing what they're trying so hard to do. It sent my blood pressure through the roof. The first clip is Colonel Jack Jacobs on Ronan Farrow's show.
First, I did want to ask you, Colonel Jacobs, last word from you. When the president goes to this point of politicizing veterans, and obviously this is something you have a personal link to given your own experience, Reince Priebus, the RNC chairman, just released a statement saying, our veterans have had enough, they deserve results, and we all deserve more from our president. It's time for an independent investigation. Do you think that is part of the politicization of this? Does that count as the vets as a football?
Well, the subject of veterans is always going to be a politicized exercise, particularly in an environment where very few people actually serve in uniform. It's heavily involved in politics. There's money involved and all the rest of that stuff. An investigation, whether it's internal or it's independent, is going to produce pretty much the same result. It's going to say we need to give it more money, more capability, more people, and a bigger bureaucracy, and that's exactly what it doesn't need. The structure of the Veterans Administration health business, it's not organized in order to deliver health care unless until you break it down and have a public-private partnership, you're not going to be able to give health care to veterans who really need it.
And that does seem in line with what the Congresswoman was suggesting, too. We'll see how these policy proposals line up in the coming days and weeks.
You know, he mentioned the Congresswoman. He's talking about Sheila Jackson Lee, of all people. I could not believe that I actually agreed with even one sentence that ever came out of Sheila Jackson Lee's mouth. But even she suggested a partnership between the VA and the private sector. But you hear Colonel Jacobs there saying that he knows exactly what the investigation, whether it be an independent investigation or an internal investigation. He knows darn well that that's going to be exactly what they say. We just really need to throw more money and more people at this.
Yeah, what we need is another accountability board, or something like that. In other words, yet another layer of bureaucracy and paperwork for the veterans to have to eat.
But see, they wasn't through over there at MSNBC. I'll give it to them. They're a tenacious bunch over there. They're like a dog with a bone when it comes to these sorts of things. So here he goes. This is like only maybe an hour later. Colonel Jacobs goes over to the Joy Reid show. I guess she wasn't watching his bit over there with Ronan Farrow, apparently, because she didn't get the hint.
And you and I were talking off the air about Colonel Shinseki, who's somebody who, during the run-up to the Iraq War, he was the guy who was trying to tell the truth and took a lot of heat for trying to explain the real costs of war. Does he have a cache of goodwill from veterans as a result of really being on the right side and being a good guy during the Iraq War part of his tenure? Does he get sort of any room to run from veterans now?
No, the short answer is no. I mean, everybody likes him. He was a great general. He was fantastic combat soldier and a wonderful human being. I've known him for 40 years. We're at the War College together. Having said all that, he'll be the first to tell you that the boss is responsible for everything that happens or fails to happen. For his part, he in fact has reduced wait times, and there are a lot of good things that he's done, but at the end of the day, too much water's gone under the bridge. It's going to be extremely difficult for him to fix, with whatever resources he's going to be given, fix a system that is essentially not only broken, but in my view, in my judgment, is actually incapable of delivering what we want it to deliver.
Well, that's a strong statement. And does that go to who the specific political appointee is at the head of the VA, or does that go to a system that's more deeply rooted than that?
Much more deeply rooted than that. It's my contention that it doesn't matter who runs the Department of Veterans Affairs. Indeed, it doesn't even matter how much money you throw at it. You know, during sequestration, we threw more money at the Department of Veterans Affairs because we didn't want to shortchange veterans. It doesn't matter how much money you give them. The structure of the organization is incapable of delivering what we really want, what we really need, and that is timely, first-class medical care for all of our veterans. It will never be able to do it, no matter what you give it.
You know, she mentioned, do you think that, because everybody liked General Shinseki because he did such a wonderful job, you know, there in the Iraq War, do you think that that's going to give him any leeway there amongst the veterans? No.
They don't care what he did during the war.
In the military, what you did never counts. It's what you do, what you're doing. You know what all this reminds me of? Reminds me of another news story from the UK a while back. They had this big ambulance scandal over in the UK.
Yeah,
And what they would do, because they were trying to reduce the wait times too.
Right.
And the ambulances, the way they had it set up was the time, the person's time clock didn't start ticking until they got them out of the ambulance and into the emergency room. And so what they would do was they would have all these ambulances parked outside with the motors running and the patients in the ambulance, so that on the paperwork side of things, it would show that they were seen in a quote-unquote timely fashion.
Right.
When in reality, they had, that's what
ambulances wrapped. They had ambulances wrapped around the block.
Yeah, and that's what blew the lid off of it, was they had so many people dying in the ambulances, and you could only hide that sort of thing for so long. That's what this reminds me of, these secret, waiting lists.
Well, that's all it is, except that in these people's cases, they didn't even have the ability to be inside an ambulance. They're just sent home.
Yeah, and told to wait. And, I'm going to play this last clip on the VA here from David Scott over there in Georgia. He has the right temperament for this. he is hot. I mean,
He's pretty mad.
hot.
He's pretty mad.
This is what I want to see out of every representative. I want them all. They should all be hopping mad. They should all be like President Stompyfoot right now, and harumphing their heads off, and getting some things done, and stop standing around trying to do. Now, I'm glad they were going to at least put forth an accountability, a bill to hold people accountable from this point on. But you know what? No.
It's not enough.
That's not
And
enough.
it's actually not the answer.
No. Let's go ahead and start with Phoenix,
And
where
fix
all
them.
of this started. Let's go ahead and start wiping out some of these bureaucracies. Start there in Phoenix. Everyone who was involved with that particular VA clinic, first, fire them. Everybody. Every single person that was involved there on the administrative side of things, fire them. They're gone. Now, that doesn't mean that their punishment is over.
It just means they're out of the way.
They're out of the way. Let's
and
get
then
new people in.
let's talk about fixing the problem.
We'll fix
and
the blame later.
We'll fix the blame down the road. You just go sit at home and wait on, and go ahead and hire a lawyer.
The other 8
and we'll get
states-
to you
Yeah.
when we can get to you.
The other 8 states that have jumped in on this, saying we've got similar problems, we found these similar, secret waiting lists and things like that in these other states, fine. Those clinics have come up. Everybody on the administrative side of those clinics, you're gone. You're gone. New people in there today fixing these problems. No, we don't need a transition period where we got to get caught up. You guys just leave everything where it is, just like it is right now. Get your personal effects and get out. Get these new people in there and start fresh. Start getting some of these veterans seen. The paperwork will be there. We've got everybody in the system. Start getting some of these vets seen. Now, once we get everything caught up there,
Then
hope
it's gonna-
you've got your lawyer on
yeah.
standby, because now you're really going to need them.
Yeah.
Because if we go ahead and say, okay, you're fired and that's it, like the second in command guy, he steps down, you're fired, that's it. No, man, because new things may come up in the course of the investigation after we've started getting everybody fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Some new things might come up, and there might be more heavily, these people may be more heavily involved in this than previously thought. No need to have 2 trials. Let's get it all done in one.
And get those people out before they can cover things up.
And here's David Scott on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The issue here before us on this bill, and first let me say I'm a proud co-sponsor of this bill to replace and be able to fire people. But the problem is the first person we need to fire is the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Mrs. Sandecki himself. Now, we respect him. We respect his sacrifice for this country and everything else, but the buck starts at the top. Here are the facts. 5,600 veterans are committing suicide every year. That's almost 20 every day. Under his watch, at my own hospital in Atlanta, 4 of our soldiers were committed suicide in the hospital. And the very Inspector General of the VA laid the blame directly at the foot of the VA administrations for the lack of management of the death of these soldiers. And when Chairman Miller and I went down and visited them, we asked, is there one more? Is there any more that has committed suicide? No, there's been no more. And they told a damn lie, because the very next day it was exposed there was another soldier that committed suicide, and they covered it up. This has been a pattern that's been going on ever since General Sandecki has been the chairman there. I respect his sacrifice. I respect what he did. But it's under his watch that we are in this situation in the hospital out in the western part of this country, where the Washington Post has accurately reported that 40 of our soldiers lost their lives, died because they couldn't get service. Our veterans are the heart and soul of this country. They are precious, and we must not turn our back upon them. I listened to the president today, and I was very disappointed with President Obama today. There was no urgency. Mr. President, we need urgency.
He's pretty mad.
That's what I want to hear out of a Democrat right there. And, you know, he, like he said, he was one of the ones that co-sponsored that House bill that the Senate Dems blocked.
Right.
You know, I'm with Mr. Scott. We need a sense of urgency on the part of the president right now.
Because people are sick today.
Yeah. And not just a sense of urgency out of the president. We need a sense of urgency out of in every state where there is the head of the Veterans Administration of each state. We need a sense of urgency out of them. Every one of them should be heard from tomorrow with some solutions. This is what, you know, we found this problem. These are our solutions.
But the only solutions that are actually going to work, Marty, are I want to hear them come out and say, this is how many layers of bureaucracy that we have decided to cut out of this process. These are the people who are going to, unfortunately, be booted out on the street and having to look for work, maybe at the IRS, maybe somewhere where an enormous bureaucracy is welcome.
Well,
but this is how many layers of bureaucracy and how much red tape is going to be taken away as an obstacle to the veterans getting their care.
I tell you what, I'll put this in language that politicians can understand. We have an election coming up. You want votes? You want to reach out to your voter base? A whole lot of veterans are voters. And the veterans would vote for the candidate that has a plan to do just what we're talking about right now.
Hey, and I'll put it to you this way.
This is how we're going. I would fix our veterans problem, and it be a viable, workable plan.
Here's something else. I'm not a veteran, but I tell you what, I'd be more proud to vote myself for that person that comes up with the plan, or that co-sponsors legislation that will actually fix this problem. And I'm not a veteran. There's a lot of other people who are not veterans, and they vote too. But they
got
care.
Family that's veterans.
Exactly.
They got friends that are veterans.
You can't spit in this country without it landing on a veteran or somebody who is related to a veteran or who loves a veteran.
So, you incumbents, this is language you guys understand. Fixing the problem at the VA equals votes. And hey, Democrats, y'all are in the tank anyway. Instead of trying to grandstand and block a bipartisan piece of legislation coming out of the House that would at least give some accountability here, y'all might want to start thinking about fixing an actual problem instead of, creating another one. Well, all right.
I'll tell you what, before we move on to a new topic, we didn't get a chance to talk before the show started. I just want to tell people that after the show, go to YouTube, look up Project Veritas, and watch their latest videos. They have caught Ed Begley Jr., Mariel Hemingway, and some big-name Hollywood producers willing to take money from a Middle Eastern oil concern to make an anti-fracking movie and ruin our energy independence. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Okay. That just totally threw me all the way off.
You had more audio.
I did. I'm trying to remember which one I was going to play now. Oh, yeah. Speaking of left-wing nutcases, Casey's talking about some of those big-name Hollywood people willing to take money. Any way that they can try to thwart anything conservative or anything that they perceive coming from the right, they will do.
Especially if it's useful.
Yeah. And you remember Howard Dean, the screamer?
Whoa!
Yeah.
That Howard
guy,
Dean.
That guy. This is I've got a piece of audio that I found earlier today where he's out stumping for another Democrat. I think it's a Senate candidate. And he just can't help himself. And, this piece of audio didn't necessarily tie into anything, but it was so absurd, I just had to clip it just as an example of just how, people love to throw out the word partisan, or polarized. It's the issues are not what is at stake in the elections anymore. Like the fracking thing, like that's an issue. That's not something that candidates want to talk about anymore. This stuff going on here with the VA, candidates don't want to talk about those things like they used to in elections. They don't want to discuss or debate any of the real pressing matters going on. Instead, what they want to do is attack
a person.
Like this Project Veritas thing that Casey was just talking about. It's not about finding a new energy source. They're not wanting them to throw money at finding a new energy source. They want them to throw money and time into attacking a conservative idea. And Howard Dean has went out on yet another limb, and his attack is he wants everybody to know that Republicans aren't even Americans anymore. This is
right.
How absurd the attacks are getting.
This country has been sold down the river by the right wing for their own purposes. This is a Republican Party that has decided they like power so much that they think it's okay to win by taking away the right to vote. They are not Americans. They could be more comfortable in the Ukraine or Russia, but stay away from our country. This is based on the right to vote.
And you hear how loud and rowdy they get, this crowd gets at him saying they're not American.
Mm-hmm.
Republicans aren't Americans. He tells an outright lie by saying that the Republicans are trying to stop people from voting because they're in that particular state. It's one of those states that right now doesn't require a photo ID to vote. Now, my state does. Here in Alabama,
God, I don't remember a time
no
when
ID,
you didn't
no
have to show an ID to vote. And the state of Alabama will give you.
Sure,
it's free.
Sure, they will.
They'll give you a photo ID.
Sure, they will. And in that state, they're trying to get it to where people will have to have an ID to vote. And instead of wanting to debate the issue of a voter ID, no. Let's just attack anyone who suggests it and try to say that for them to even suggest the idea that maybe it might be a good idea to verify that the people going into the voting booths are citizens. Let's attack the people who suggest that. It's not about issues. It's about attacks. Now, granted, that's Howard Dean, and whoever was getting him to stump for him, bless their heart, they must be desperate. They must be, scraping the bottom of the barrel.
When was the last time Howard Dean had credibility, Marty?
I can't remember. I've been trying to think. He never had any, as far as I know. And again, we're talking about just how wacko things are, coming from the left. I told you about another piece of audio earlier from a professor that helped draft Common Core.
Well, you're really coming up with absurd clips tonight, man.
Well, I want people to see just what lurks on the other side. I want people
Lurk
to
is a
understand.
good word.
I want people to understand who we're talking about dealing with here. In an election coming up, it really should be about the people. You know, not just we the people, but the people who are running. I don't believe in mudslinging and things like that during campaigns. But what I do believe in is letting the voters see who it is that they're voting for. Now, this guy's not. He is not a candidate for anything,
and he never will be. See, that's the thing.
But he's
somebody like him isn't actually going to put his name out as a person who is going to solve a problem. You said the word lurk a while ago. It's an excellent choice of word for the kind of person this is. After this goes public, what he said, he's probably going to wish he had stayed in obscurity.
No, I think he's going to stand with it. See, here's the thing. People like this guy here, while they're not candidates, they are the ones that are behind the candidates. They're the ones that these candidates are leaning on. This guy helped draft Common Core. This guy is partly responsible for everything that's going to be drilled into our children's heads when they go to school. And this is where these things come from. There's this Common Core thing is really hotly debated still, and it's already in our schools. But when you know who drafted it, when you can see exactly who the people are that are behind something like Common Core, and then you see who is pushing it so hard, it's the Democrats. They are the party that is behind Common Core standards. You listen to what comes out of these people's mouths, and then you say, okay, when I'm in the voting booth, is this the kind of person that I want to vote for?
Yeah, I do want to correct you on one thing. You said it's Democrats, but that's not exactly true. The exact word is it's progressives. Because Jeb Bush, who is a Republican,
you got me there. Yeah,
he is pushing for Common Core.
You got me there. You got me.
He is a progressive. He calls himself a Republican, but he can't be conservative. Not if he's pushing this idea.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you see Jeb Bush's name show up in presidency, if he shows up in a primary in your state, just remember that he is embracing the same ideals of this man who's Marty is about to play this audio.
Mm-hmm.
So you just keep that in mind.
Listen to this.
I'm not paid to be here either. I'm just an interested teacher who helped write the standards. And the reason why I helped write the standards and the reason why I am here today is that as a white male in society, I'm given a lot of privilege that I didn't earn.
I'm going to play that again. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if I can't highlight this, and I'm going to boost it just a little bit more so that you can hear him a little bit better.
Because this wasn't recorded on probably the best. I think it was recorded on a phone.
Here we go.
The reason why I helped write the standards and the reason why I am here today is that as a white male in society, I'm given a lot of privilege that I didn't earn. And as a result, I think it's really important. I think it's really important that all kids get an equal opportunity to learn how to read. And I think I had decided advantages as a result of who I was, not being a choice of mine. And when I walk into places like Roberto Clemente High School on the west side of Chicago, I think it's really important that those kids learn how to read just as well as I had the opportunity to read.
All right, what this guy just said, in case you missed it, is that the reason he wanted to get involved with Common Core and those standards is because as a white man, as a white male, He has enjoyed a lot of privilege that he did not earn simply because he is a white male.
Now, you know what?
And by the way, this white privilege thing is part of the Common Core curriculum.
Yeah,
it is taught in Common Core.
It's deeply embedded in it. Now, the thing is, I'm going to go ahead and agree with that fella on one thing. He probably did get a lot of privileges that he didn't earn. Unfortunately, more than likely, it wasn't because of the color of his skin.
More than likely, nothing. It was not. Definitely not because he was a white man.
It was because his mommy and daddy told him he was a little special snowflake. And he was probably born into money.
In these Common Core standards, a Common Core curriculum, particularly up in Michigan, they are having white privilege as like part of the classwork. It's part of a class. Like when your child in elementary school is sitting in his social studies class, thanks to the Common Core standards, they are going to be taught that in the United States, being white has, or privilege comes to those who are white, period. And that everyone else is, not was, but is being oppressed. Now, they said when Common Core was first starting to come out, you remember they said it was only going to be, in the math and science. That the Common Core standards and the Common Core curriculum was only going to apply to math and science. And the idea behind it was that it was just going to raise the standards, supposedly just a little bit.
Do you remember, I hate to break your train of thought, but I think this is important. We had social studies classes in school. It was required. It was a required subject. Do you remember we learned, one of our social studies classes, probably about like 7th or 8th grade, we learned a lot about the founding of our state, about Alabama, about Vasco da Gama, Ponce de Leon, Hernando de Soto. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
You remember we learned about the history of our state, how it was founded. We learned about, as far as social studies go, the social part of it, we learned about countries like Peru and how their country was founded. Remember, we learned about a little bit about China, not much because China was a kind of walled off from everybody else at that time. But we learned a little bit about China. We learned a little bit about all kinds of other different countries around the world and what made us, how they were different and things like. What happened to that, man? The word privilege, it didn't come up.
No, it didn't because it didn't exist, and it still doesn't exist. And that's my main problem with these Common Core standards and the lies that had to be told before these standards would be crept in there. Like I was saying earlier, this was supposed to extend to math and science, and all it was supposed to do was raise the testing standards of that went on in those classes. Instead, it is
an indoctrination.
It's an indoctrination now, and it's people that authored these standards, just like this man here. He helped write the curriculum that your kids are going to be learning in school. He says the reason he got involved with it was because he was feeling so much guilt from being white, and that somehow or another he doesn't think that a kid at an elementary school is going to get, they're all in the same classroom, but somehow or another, the white kids are getting a better opportunity to learn how to read than non-white kids. So while he's writing up these standards here, this new curriculum for Common Core, he has to put in there somewhere that being white in this country equals privilege, not being white in this country equals oppression, and it's going to be hammered into our children's little brains where it sticks. Most of the lessons that I learned in elementary school are still very much in my head today. And if you don't think that this stuff isn't going to still stick out in your kids' heads when they become adults, then you're fooling yourself. They're putting these things, like this white privilege thing, it's being taught at the most impressionable age in a child's development. So it'll stick in there for the long term. And Casey's right about it not being a Democrat thing. It's a progressive thing. But the people who are pushing this, these progressives that are pushing this, when you look at the ballots, you look and see who thinks this Common Core thing is a good idea.
And when you see that they're promoting Common Core and you're trying to decide who to vote for, don't vote for that person unless you've got this overwhelming sense of guilt because you're white for some reason or another.
That just that blows my mind.
When Barack Obama is president of the United States, where is white privilege, man?
Yeah. The progressives want everybody to believe.
When one of the most respected members of the Supreme Court is a black man.
One of the leading economists of this country today.
When the best neurosurgeon in this country, Dr. Ben Carson, he's not white, but he's the best man. If anybody had to do any surgery on my brain, I would pray to God that it would be Dr. Ben Carson.
Well, I'm going to call him tonight then, see if we can't get some surgery.
But
well, look, guys, we are at the end of our rainbow for the evening. Time just flew right on by. And I don't want to leave everybody on a down note, because there is hope. We know how to get through this. 2,000 years ago, we didn't have Common Core. We had a core that we held in common. And that was with Jesus Christ. He is our common core.
200 and some odd years ago, we didn't have Common Core educational standards.
Nope.
We had a core in common.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you can call it divine providence. It's not an offensive term. You can say, a more, I guess, blatant term is we had God.
Yeah.
We had a nation.
One
and
nation
a founding
under God.
We had our founders who relied on the blessings of the Almighty to have a revolution and form a country like no other has ever existed before or since. A country founded on the principle that anybody in the country had the right and the privilege to worship as they saw fit, freely. And you know what? no matter what laws have been passed, one of the great words out of the Declaration of Independence, the word inalienable. Marty knows what that means, and I know what it means. But just in case there's any confusion out there, the word inalienable means it can't be taken away from you. You can pray no matter who you are, no matter where you are. You have that right. It cannot be taken away from you in this country. You can pray.
Not just can. At this point in the game, should. Because that is the only way that we're going to get out of this mess. We need a common core. All right, I'll agree. We need common core in this country.
Because you can't trust Ted Cruz. You can't trust Jeff Sessions. Now, these are men I like. Okay? You can't trust Rand Paul. You can't trust Barack Obama. You can't trust Howard Dean. They're men. They will let you down every time. There is only one person, one entity that won't let you down, that is incorruptible.
And he says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land.
Amen.
All right, guys. We'll see you again on Tuesday. Just hang in there the best you can, and we'll see you then.
Night, y'all.